I think it is no secret that many veterans, especially from the Vietnam War era, believe that the government did not keep its word to them, that the promises were made to them that were not kept. And I think that if somebody puts on the uniform of this country and puts their life on the line, it is our job to make sure that every promise made to them is in fact kept. And I'm happy to say that in the last several years, and I say this as a member of the Senate Veterans Committee, I think we have been making progress in keeping the promises made to our vets. And today what I wanted to do is focus on two new programs that can have a significant impact on the lives of veterans in Vermont and throughout this country. And those two programs are, number one, the significantly expanded educational opportunities that will be available to post 9/11 veterans. And second of all, the fact that we are beginning to make some progress in bringing veterans into the VA who were thrown out by Bush in 2003, the so-called Priority 8 veterans. And I'm delighted that I have with me this afternoon Jackie Calamano, who is with the State of Vermont's Office of Veterans Affairs, and Wendy DeKoff, who is the enrollment coordinator of the Veterans Health Administration at White River Junction, and Sam Haskins. Sam has worked for me for many years. He's a Vietnam-era vet, and he is my Veterans Policy Advisor. Last year, Congress passed the most significant veterans education legislation since the original GI Bill of Rights in 1944. And by the way, that legislation had a profound impact not only on millions of soldiers who were returning from the war, but on our country as a whole. This legislation, this new GI educational bill, which I co-sponsored and fought for, will make post-9/11 veterans eligible for substantial financial aid as they pursue their higher education. And the point of today's get-together is to make sure that everybody in the state of Vermont knows about these programs, and we're going to give you information as to how you can find out more and make sure that these programs work for you. But the bottom line is we have passed a huge expansion of educational opportunities for post-9/11 veterans. And let me just very briefly touch on some of them. There will be a major tuition and fees payment which goes directly to the school, up to the level of tuition and fees at the most expensive state institution of higher learning, where the veteran is enrolled in school. So by and large, most veterans who will go to school will have their tuition and fees paid for completely. In addition, there will be a monthly housing allowance that, for someone attending school in Vermont, will be approximately $1,700 a month. That's a very significant stipend. So what we're talking about now is tuition and housing coverage. Furthermore, there will be an annual book stipend of $1,000 a year. Furthermore, there will also be, and this is important and a little bit complicated, so I'm going to ask people later on to do their best to clarify it. What this legislation also does is it allows these benefits to be transferred to family members. Husband may want to give it to his wife, may want to give it to his kids, and one can do that under certain circumstances. So my message today is that post-9/11 Vermont veterans who are interested in pursuing a higher education should get as much information about the new legislation as they can and determine what options work best for them. And the best source for that information is the website www.gibill.va.gov. Do we have that here somewhere? Right. There it is. What a staff. Okay. And that's where people, I think, can get the best information. All right, now let me switch gear and talk about another significant improvement in programming for vets in Vermont throughout the country. As some may recall, in 2003, the Bush administration removed so-called Priority 8 veterans from access to VA health care. Priority 8 veterans are people without service-connected disabilities. They were not hurt or wounded in the course of their military service. But many of them can have incomes as low as $28,000 a year and still not be able to get into the VA for health care. Some of us have worked very hard to open the door to those people who were pushed out of the VA. And what I am happy to announce today is that in Congress we have provided an additional $350 million so that some 265,000 Priority 8 veterans will once again be allowed into the system. And essentially, we go into greater detail later, what has happened is we have raised at the first level, we have raised by 10% the allowable income for veterans. So if your income, if you just missed getting in the past, it's going to go up 10% and you can get in now. We expect that in the not too distant future, it's going to go up another 10%. And we'll see what happens in future years. But my own view is that the doors of the VA should be open to any veteran who has served. And we have information on that as well. So the bottom line here is that there are two significant improvements in benefits for our veterans. And every veteran in the state of Vermont should find out how these new benefits work for them. And we have people here who are prepared to provide more information. So let's begin with Jackie Carlamagno, who is with the State of Vermont Office of Veterans Affairs. Jackie, why don't you...
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jackie Carlamagno, and I work at the Vermont Office of Veterans Affairs, and I work in veterans education and training issues. I'm here to encourage Vermont veterans and their families to learn about their education options and the new post-9/11 GI Bill. The new GI Bill takes effect this summer on August 1st. But I'd like to also remind veterans that the old GI Bill is still in force. The Montgomery GI Bill remains in force for many different types of educational opportunities, not just higher education, not just college diplomas, but also for vocational diplomas such as truck driving, beautician school, on-the-job training, and apprenticeships. So that's important to remember. I encourage those who might have remaining entitlement under the old GI Bill to take advantage of those educational benefits that they've earned. So as you've heard from Senator Sanders, the new post-9/11 GI Bill is a very, very generous new education benefit. And it's generally available to those who have at least 90 days of aggregate service after 9/11. There are other categories as well, but that's generally. As you heard also, it's a 3-tiered benefit, and most importantly, it provides a tuition and fee benefit, which is quite generous. The VA will pay up to the amount of the highest public in-state tuition and fees. And in Vermont, that's $460 per credit and $2,203 per term fees. So you could have a total amount, if the math is correct here, of approximately $7,723 a term paid on your behalf to an institution of higher learning. So this benefit is going to allow Vermont veterans to attend any of the Vermont state colleges essentially for free. So you're talking about Community College of Vermont, Linden State, Johnson State, Vermont Technical College in Castleton. But not only is it a very generous benefit, but it's also enormously complex. So really,
this is the VA, after all, right? It had to be complex.
Exactly. So eligibility and the actual benefit amount depends on the individual circumstances for the veterans. It's highly independent. So here's the best advice. Go to the source, the Department of Veterans Affairs. Go to their website, www.gibill.va.gov, because every single day there's new information for veterans. Study your options, ask the VA questions, and remember that the VA is the one who determines your eligibility and your benefit amount, so become your own expert. Finally, I'd like to explain one additional part of the new GI Bill, which is called the Yellow Ribbon Program. It's actually called the Yellow Ribbon Enhancement Program. Under this program, colleges in Vermont, degree-granting institutions, have voluntarily entered into agreements with the VA, and these agreements try to bridge the gap between the in-state tuition rate and the higher tuition rate that those colleges might charge. So this could be a private college or even a public graduate college. So currently a few Vermont colleges have partnered with the VA to provide this additional benefit, and this means that if a school's tuition is in excess of the VA's in-state rate, that's $7,000 plus, I mentioned to you, there might be a way for a veteran to close that gap at a private institution or, again, a public graduate program. The list of those Vermont colleges is going to be on that website in a few weeks after June 15th. So veterans are going to want to check that website and see which Vermont colleges are participating. But remember, there are many diverse and excellent colleges in Vermont, and some of those colleges have tuition that is lower than the in-state rate. So while those aren't yellow ribbon schools, those are still affordable schools and excellent schools for Vermont veterans. Thank you very much.
Jackie, thank you. Wendy, the COF is with the enrollment coordinator with the VA at White River Junction. I'll send all this stuff to you. All right.
As Senator Sanders...
Get closer to the mic if you could, please.
As Senator Sanders had offered, the VA has opened up the Priority Group 8 with the relaxation of a 10%. That's to take effect in June of this year. So White River itself has sent out the veterans in the state of Vermont a letter notifying them of the change with an application allowing them to reapply, which they have to do in order to meet the regulation that they had passed. So if you didn't get a letter, you can call us in White River toll-free and speak to one of the health benefits advisors, and we'll help you walk you through that process. If you received your letter and your application, we just ask that you fill it out and send it back to us.
And when that begins? In
June.
What, any particular day, or June 1st?
At this point, they're just saying June. They passed the law to go back to January, but the applications will start in June. So this year, anybody that has filled out an application that fell in the rejected, they're going to look at those internally, and we are keeping track of those, and we have a list, and so they'll get a letter sometime after June if they've qualified for that 10%.
All right, I have worked very hard on this issue, and one of the reasons I worked very hard is that Sam Haskins kept pushing me for years and years on this issue. Sam, why is opening up the VA to more Priority 8 veterans important?
Well, I believe that this change is a good start for some of our veterans. Many of our veterans believe the government should not be asking income questions, and certainly not asking the income of their spouses. When these soldiers were either drafted or signed up for the military service, there was never a question concerning his or her income or their spouses. The new recruit was told, don't worry about the medical expenses. For the rest of your life, the United States government will take care of you. Since the 1980s, previous to 1980s, they never questioned income. Since the 1980s, VA started asking income questions and categorizing the veterans. Many veterans will not ask for medical care from the VA until either their medical needs are beyond their control or they are in financial hardship. Many sell their homes because of bad health and they no longer can care for them. When they sell those homes, this also puts them over the net worth limits. The net worth limit right now is approximately $80,000. And most homes go beyond the $80,000 limit. So here's an individual that's worked all these years. They sell that home because they no longer can take care of it, and then they cannot go to the VA and use it, especially if they're not signed up because of now their net worth.
And you run into these
we run into these on a regular basis. I've run into them with working with Wendy and with the eligibility clerks at the VA. Our veterans are, so many of them are so proud. I have seen these families use all their finances before allowing themselves to feel like they're receiving welfare or begging for an entitlement that they have put their lives on the line for. Many of our veterans will not have a medical problem as a result of their service until a few years after discharge. We see that occurring all the time. We have many veterans from the World War II era, Korean War veterans that have problems related to Cold War injuries. Vietnam veterans with diseases related to exposure to Agent Orange, Gulf War veterans with undiagnosed conditions. At this point, we have no idea what our soldiers of today are going to be exposed to or what disabilities will result of their service. If we allowed the VA to treat all veterans, no matter what their income, I think the quality of care for the veterans would be much better, as conditions related to the military service may be diagnosed sooner.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, any questions on this?
The number of post-9/11 veterans in Vermont and the country.
You know, I don't have an answer to that.
You're talking about both the National Guard and active duty folks.
You mean the total number of folks who've deployed?
Who would be
From
eligible?
Vermont.
Who we're talking about here?
We're talking about many thousands.
Well, for example, there's 1,800 who are going to be deployed moving forward from here in the Vermont National Guard. Now, those folks are definitely going to become eligible when they come back.
Plus all the ones who were in Iraq, of course.
Yes, so there's quite a few. I mean, I'm sorry I can't give you anything specific about
Plus,
that.
those are just the National Guard people.
Just the National Guard. Of course, there's always,
The active
young
duty.
men and women who leave Vermont, enter the services, and are deployed. And so those are some big
I think it's fair to say there are many thousands.
Senator Sanders, you said this, but it's worth reinforcing that no one gets these benefits unless they take the step to
That's right.
get them. So I think we should reinforce that.
Well, here's the point. I think Congress is beginning to step up to the plate and do the right thing by our veterans. But unless veterans find the information that makes sense to them and learn how to get into these programs, it's not going to do anybody any good. And that's why we're here today. What we're saying is that people put their lives on the line defending this country. Congress has said we are going to provide a significant expansion of educational opportunities. What Jackie is saying is that for many people, you're going to be able to go to college virtually free. That's pretty good. And if people want to do that, they should find out more information. Our office is there. Your office is there. The information is there. Please take advantage of it. And in addition to that, there are veterans in the state of Vermont, all over this country, who were rejected from the VA for health care because their income was a few dollars above a certain line. Well, we're beginning to change that as well. But unless you apply, you're not going to be able to get into the VA. And so the message of today is we are beginning to keep faith with our veterans in both in education and opening up the doors of the VA for health care. We are making progress. And we hope that as many Vermont veterans as possible will take advantage of these very positive changes.
Approximately how many Vermont veterans will be potentially brought into the system for these new eligibilities?
I can tell you that the VA in White River sent out about 1,800 letters from those over the last 4 fiscal years that were in the rejected status, inviting them to reapply.
So you got 1,800 in Vermont, and you have about 265,000 nationally.
Is there any time limit as to when these benefits are good for, or is it a veteran is a veteran forever unless they've taken advantage of the educational opportunity?
Well, as Jackie indicated, if you want to go to college this fall, you better get moving.
They do have delimiting dates.
They have up to 15 years.
15 years.
But they've got to use that within that 15 years.
Right. And the Montgomery GI Bill has a delimiting date of 10 years after they leave service. So there are folks out there who are eligible for that, and they need to look at that as well.
I know, Jackie, the majority of the people that your officers are Vietnam veterans. I'm wondering if either of these two new initiatives are going to help that population.
Not the new GI, not the post 9/11 GI Bill, but I'm sure for the income.
It will certainly affect the Vietnam veterans of Category A.
Yes.
But, and I think,
There may be some.
yeah, the point that Jackie was making is this is not the only educational program out there. And if we can remind some of the veterans out there that there is the old Montgomery.
Right, right. Now, I don't know that whether there be too many Vietnam veterans.
Right, not Vietnam veterans.
But there are some, and they know who they are, who have been sitting on their education benefits and know their delimiting date and have just sort of put it off. So I really want to encourage them to take a look at the kinds of programs that they could enter into. Maybe not higher education, but maybe apprenticeship, on-the-job training. You can get your GI Bill benefits for those programs as well.
Okay. All right, listen, thank you very much for coming. This is one of the frustrations that I have is no matter whatever we do in Washington, sometimes we do some good things. It doesn't matter if people don't take advantage of it. So I very much appreciate you being here and helping us to spread the word. Okay. And Jackie and Wendy, thank you both very much.
Thank you.